It's like a Zoom call. Am I really looking at you or am I really looking at me? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're sitting down and I'm using the selfie camera on my phone. But who knows how that will work out because I really want to just look at me. But then I also put this yellow sticky tab right on the camera, so then who knows if I'm gonna stare at you or if I'm gonna stare at me. Just treat this like a pre-recorded Zoom call that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything, you can leave. Like, I'm not gonna penalize you for not attending this Zoom call. Well, today we're sitting down because I didn't feel like standing. I'm gonna talk about the books that I read in January. I didn't think I read a whole lot of books in January, but then I looked back on it and then I'm like, well, I actually did read a couple of books in January to make a video about, so let's just get right onto it. I had a pretty good, actually I didn't have a pretty good January. I was gonna release a video earlier this month. I ended up waiting a whole month to do another video, but then I had computer problems and then I had family problems and then it's just didn't feel like doing anything other than read books, I guess. Well, in terms of books, I had a pretty good January. I didn't really have anything that super wowed me, but I did have one or two that were like pretty high up there. So let's just get on to it. I'm not doing these in any particular order, I'm just doing them in order that I read. Also, about half of these are books that I got from Libby. So Libby is this, I'm not sponsored yet. Libby is this free library app. All you need is your own library card and you can input it in so you can request ebooks and audiobooks from your local library through the app. Right, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit. The first book that I want to talk about is not really the first book I read in January, it's the last book I read in December, but I finished it really close to the end of December, so I want to put it here. And that is The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu. So The Lost Book of the White is the second book in the Elves Curses series. I don't know if it's a trilogy, and it's set in the Mortal Instruments universe, and it primarily follows Magnus Bane and Alec Lightwood. I don't know how deep I should get into this. Just if you don't know Shadowhunters, then look it up because it's too much work and I don't feel like talking about it. Fucking construction. The thing is, I'm gonna go a bit on a tangent here. I wasn't really super into Shadowhunters when I was younger. I tried to read it in middle school. And then, so there's this scene, I think, there's a scene in the first book, in the first Shadowhunters book, where it's basically the opening. Clary goes to a club, finds Jace and the other Shadowhunters, and they're killing a demon, and then Jace is like, very obviously just giving out a bunch of exposition and everyone's calling him out on it. It's like, yeah, we all know that. It's like obvious world building, but it's obviously for the reader. And me in middle school was like, wow, this sounds so stupid that he's just giving shit out. I didn't say that, but he's just so obvious. And I'm like, me in middle school was like, whatever. It was like, this is too obvious. This is stupid. That scene kept me off of Shadowhunters for years. Because I didn't like how Jace delivered exposition. That's it, really. So anyway, I'm just kind of very ambivalent about the Shadowhunters series. I kind of, the movie was I don't know. I did like the actors. I was not a fan of the plot changes. Anyway, rest in peace, Godfrey Gao. And then the Shadowhunters TV show, I tried to watch that, but I couldn't get into it as well because there were a lot of changes and I also didn't really like the actors that much, so. But anyway, I'm here for the gay, so I read The Elves Curses and I read Lost Book of the White. I did like the first Elves Curses book, The Red Scrolls of Magic, I believe it was. I thought it was fine. But then I'm like, you know what, I had a hold on Lost Book of the White on Libby, and I'm like, you know what, let's just see how it goes. I'm here to have a good time. And I actually really enjoyed this a lot, more than I thought I would. The thing that really drew me into this book was the fact that they spend a lot of time in Shanghai. They really explore it. It's described really beautifully, and I really enjoyed the chapters that the gang spends in Shanghai. I'm not gonna get much into the plot, to be honest. I don't remember it. I only remember they were talking about, like, you know, Shanghai landmarks in Shanghai, food, Chinese food, and I'm like, damn, I wish it was me. Yeah, for the most part I did enjoy it. Part of it that really also drew me in was the fact that Magnus and Alec are now parents. So that was really sweet to see a lot of like that domestic bliss, like the domestic relationship, like these two young people like trying to be good parents to their kid, and I'm like, damn, that's so sweet. It was really weird how their son's name is named after Alec's dead brother, but like I don't have any siblings, so maybe it's just something that I don't understand. But at the same time, like naming your kid after your dead family member who you were very close to, like, I feel like that's just some sort of, it just feels like some sort of weird expectation is put on them because you're naming them after this person, you know? It's sort of like, it just really freaks me out a little bit. I don't know. I don't have any siblings, so maybe that's just me. Yeah, so the parts that I really enjoyed about this book were the parts that took place in Shanghai. And then for the last third of the book, it just kind of like, they go to basically the Chinese version of hell. And then I was like, okay, I'm kind of clocking out now, so that's why I gave Lost Book of the White 3 stars. The next book on this list is the first book that I read in January, and that was Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I also took this out on Libby. Scythe takes place in this dystopian, utopian future society in which humankind has managed to conquer death with the help of this super intelligence, artificial intelligence called the Thunderhead. Like, all of humanity's needs have now been met. No one starves, no one gets thirsty, no one gets sick, and no one dies. However, people do still need to die in order for society to function, to cull overpopulation. So there is a group of people called Scythes who glean people. They don't use the word kill, they glean them. And these group of Scythes are the only people in the whole world allowed to kill people, basically. So we follow these two young people, one named Roman or Rowan, I forgot, and Citra. And they are under the care of Scythe Faraday, who is training them to be his apprentices so that they may become Scythes themselves. And it's a lot of talk about like morality and like what death and murder should look like in a post-mortality future. They have like a really different attitude about death and murder. It was actually a lot. I didn't really have many expectations for this book, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. I gave it a 3 star as well because there was just some things about like the pacing that really kind of, it was a little bit too fast for my taste, but like I think it's just, you know, like just a me thing. Another part that I had sort of qualms with was the relationship between, it's Rowan, I just looked it up. Rowan and Citra. I read, okay, this is a little bit in spoiler territory. I read Rowan and Citra as a really strong friendship, but they were kind of towing the line on romance, but it didn't really feel like, it just felt like they were both acknowledging the fact that they were a boy and a girl alone together, and it's like, well, I guess we're a boy and a girl alone together, so I guess we gotta kiss. And I'm like, but do you know, were there any queer people? I don't think so. At least not that I can remember off the top of my head. For the most part, I did really enjoy the world building. I didn't feel like I had to question anything about it. They don't really go into a lot of detail about things, but at the same time, it's like, I didn't really feel like it was necessary. Like, they're just living in their society. They're just living it, and I'm like, I see you living it, and everything, I didn't really find any, like, you know, world building inconsistencies or anything like that. So that's why I enjoyed this book a lot. And I am really intrigued on how it ended, so I am going to be reading the sequel, Thunderhead, in the future. Right, so the next book on this list is something that I have a physical book for, and that is Traitor's Moon by Lynn Flewelling, the 3rd book in the Nightrunner series. We follow a thief named Sergil and his partner Alec as they're these sort of like thieves for hire, and they work as spies for the queendom of Scala that they live in. And They are also bisexual fairy men who love each other very much. This is a series of books written by, series of fantasy books written by Lynn Flewelling, starting in the 90s, and then I think the last book was released, I think in 2014. I don't see a lot of people talking about the Nightrunner series, and I wonder why, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, Traitor's Moon was kind of a drag a little bit. I started reading Nightrunner about 2 years ago, when I was a sophomore in college, and I read this book, and then I kind of just teetered off because there's 7 books in this series, and they're all in like these tiny mass market paperbacks. So it's kind of for someone with not super great eyesight like me, it's a bit of an ordeal. In particular, like for some reason, it sometimes like it just kind of goes really close to the edges here, and I'm like, and then sometimes when I'm reading, like my light is only really hitting it in one area, and it's like, oh, and I have to like close it and then I have to open it, and it's like, so the physicality of it was a bit taxing on me, so it took me a long time to read this. So the first 2 books were like a little bit more actiony. This one is more like a murder house mystery, I guess you could say. There's a lot more political intrigue, a lot more court stuff, and also they go to a new country, so then we have to learn a lot of new names. A lot of new names, and I'm like, damn, who are you again? A lot of, I'm not kidding when I say a lot of new names, so that just really put me off for a while. The first half of this book was pretty aight, and then the second half just really kind of, I wasn't really satisfied by the outcome of the mystery, and that kind of wrapped up pretty quickly. And now I'm reading the 4th book in the series, and it's actually really depressing. It's really depressing, and so I'm like a bit like, damn, I gotta step away from this because I am too sad. But we'll see. It'll probably get me another month to get through that as well, because like, I'm not gonna get into it. I'll talk about it when I'm done with it, but it's just, so far we started in a very dark place, and I'm like, damn, I'm in a dark place. I cannot dig myself in further with these more dark places. But look, I still really like the characters of Sergal and Alec. I highly recommend the Nightrunner series if you're into, you know, fantasy. And considering that like Sergal and Alec are 2 men who love each other, and this was written in the 90s, I think this is like really, it's just really ahead of its time. It's not a perfect book, but you know, there are definitely a lot of good points in it as well. Yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this because I want to finish it. Like, I have all 7 books back there, and you know, the tiny mass market paperbacks, because I'm an impulse buyer that I'm trying to not be anymore. I'm gonna read them and see how it all goes, you know? Once you're in, the only way out is through. Next book on this list is Someone Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory by Raphael Bob-Waksberg. Raphael Bob-Waksberg is one of the writers, I think he's the head writer of BoJack Horseman. It's an adult book that features short stories about, you know, love and relationships, marriage, identity, growing up, all that good stuff, but it's kind of has an absurdist twist on it. I did enjoy this book as well. I guess it's because, you know, I've been reading a lot of like this was an easy read compared to the other reads that I've been through. There were some stories where I was like, but then like a lot of the stories I was really interested in. It was really funny. Kind of gave me a bit of Welcome to Night Vale vibes about it, and I'm like, damn, I really want to see an extended universe of like this particular story. My favorite one was the one with the goat sacrifices, which is the first story in this book, and it's like all these goat sacrifices, and I'm like, and like when it comes to a marriage, like who, like the family really gets involved. It's like, it's not just like a couple affair, it's a family affair. It's a whole thing. So yes, if like you're into sort of like an absurdist comedy fiction, then I highly recommend this book. I enjoyed it a lot. And you know, with short stories, you win some, you lose some. So the next book on this list is Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens by Tanya Boteju. Boteju? Boteju? Boteju. I'm putting emphasis on all these words. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce this. This is a young adult contemporary fiction book following this young woman named Nima, who is sort of living in this small town and trying to figure out her identity, and dealing with a lot of family issues, and also a crush on her straight best friend. But one day Nima goes to this drag show and she becomes really inspired, meets another girl there, and like really explores the world of drag and the freedom that it inspires in her. I enjoyed this book a lot. it was really easy to read and it didn't really feel serious. Because that's the thing that I feel like that's the thing that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, because it doesn't take itself too seriously. I really related to the main character Nima. She has a lot of social anxiety, and like her thought process was like, damn, yes, I understand this thought process about like that anxiety sort of induces. She's also dealing with, you know, a lot of friendship drama, a lot of like love drama, a lot of self-identity issues, and it was just really uplifting to see this young woman kind of come into her own. But I gave this one a 3 stars because like there was just a lot of stuff. Didn't really feel tied in, I guess you could say. Like there's this one character named Charles, and he's Nima's best friend. And I feel like if you cut him out, then nothing would really change. That's something that I noticed with this book. The title is called Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens. Nima sort of the drag, what's the word I'm looking for? The drag scene? Yes, the scene. She enters the drag scene of her that's sort of hidden next to her town. And like there is a really strong character who is a drag queen who I really liked. And it does really get into like sort of how drag offers this really freeing expression of creativity in people who do it. That's what Nima gets from this. I just would have liked to see more of the drag, because there's really only 2 other characters that do drag that are not Nima. Nima doesn't really do it until the end. I guess I would have just liked to see more drag in this. They don't really talk about the history of drag that much, but I guess that would have eaten up a lot of time, so I understood that decision. But like I guess at the same time, like I personally would have liked to have seen more drag history, a little bit more like drag terminology, maybe a little bit more, just more of the drag scene in general, because really most of this is Nima's journey of like growing up, teenagerhood, teenage angst. It just feels like if it were like grounded a little bit more and like expanded in more different places, then maybe it could have been really strong. But Nima is a really strong character in and of herself. There's a lot of other strong characters here. So I do really think that like for a young person, younger than me, is sort of curious about the drag scene, maybe they can read this and I get really inspired by it. So that's why I still really enjoyed this book. Yeah, and I do recommend it if you're interested. So the last book on this list is the book that I finished last night, and that is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. This book played me like a goddamn fiddle. I'm a fool. I'm a fool who's played like a fiddle because of this book. It knew how I would think and then manipulated me. This book gaslit me. No, I'm kidding. That's spoilers, but I'm still reeling about this book because I finished it last night. So The Extraordinaries takes place in a world where people with superpowers are called extraordinaries, and some of them become superheroes. And we follow our main character, Nick, who is a high school junior dealing with ADHD and likes to write self-insert fanfiction of him and his favorite superhero, Shatterstar. And so Nick becomes so inspired one day that he decides that he wants to become an extraordinary to help Shatterstar and maybe get a chance to kiss him a little bit, maybe. So in his quest to become an extraordinary, we are joined by his 2 best friends, Gibby and Jazz, as well as his childhood best friend named Scythe. And they all say Nikki no, but he says Nikki yes, and does some really reckless things in order to sort of jumpstart his origin story. I found this a really enjoyable book. I had a lot of laughs, and Nikki as a protagonist with ADHD, I related to him a lot. I have ADHD. I got diagnosed like 2 weeks ago. Hey. You know, about like 7 different people like welcomed me to the club, and I'm like, damn, there was an ADHD club this whole time, and now I'm in it. Anyway, back to this book. So yes, as a protagonist with ADHD, I related to him a lot. He is a little bit more like hyperactive than I am. This book, I think it was really cleverly crafted. It fooled me. There was a lot of foreshadowing in this book, And then I'm like, damn, okay, I see your foreshadowing from a mile away. I'm such a smart reader. And then it turns out to be an entire... No, I'm not entirely wrong, but damn, they really bamboozled me. Cause like in the beginning I was a bit like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then the more I read into it, the deeper I was like, oh, it's definitely gonna be that. But then it turns out to be something else. And then I'm not really getting into spoilers. I'm just like, there was a really good, I found it to be a really good plot twist, because damn, like I was fooled by my own hubris. I was too cocky as a reader. I was like, oh, this foreshadowing is so obvious. It's definitely gonna be this. But then no, I was played for a fool. I'm a sucker in this situation, and I'm definitely gonna read the sequel. Yeah, I gave this a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. The ending really dragged for me, and I feel like the romance could have been developed a little bit more. But there is going to be a sequel coming out this July, so that's where all the romance development is going to be, hopefully. Hopefully they're also going to expand their world a little bit, because in that book, more superheroes are joining them, and then it's like, oh, like what is this world going to be? It feels a little bit like Sky High mixed with X-Men, mixed with Kick-Ass, mixed with My Hero Academia a little bit, and it's a really healthy doppling dose of gay, so I'm really here for it. And yeah, those were all the books that I read in January, and in terms of books, it was a pretty good month. But real quick before you go, I want to talk about some of the books that I am reading currently, and one of them is Aurora Rising by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. Who knows when I'm gonna finish this, because I took this out on Libby and I couldn't get through it and the hold lapsed. So I put another hold on it. It's probably gonna be, I think it said 10 weeks. So like, maybe I'll talk about it in April or something. But yeah, I don't want to DNF it though. Or do I want to DNF it? It's really a toss up for me, because I don't like books that take themselves so seriously. And this book I felt like was one of them. I might DNF it, who knows? Because the chapter where I left off of, I really didn't want to get through it. I mean, I don't know, but I really want to read more sci-fi, because I'm working on a sci-fi story myself, so I want to read more sci-fi, and I'm like, but damn, is this a sci-fi for me? Anyway, so Aurora Rising, heck, I might DNF it. I don't know, guys. So yes, Aurora Rising, this book follows a group of ragtag young teens as they save the galaxy, or whatever. I don't give a crap. So the thing is that like I couldn't really get into it because they were all taking themselves too seriously, but then also at the same time not seriously enough. Because the thing is that these 5 teenagers they all work for this like intergalactic peacekeeping coalition, and so like they have a pretty big job to do. They're basically the UN in space, and so but then like this is a pretty big job, but they all seem very silly. They all seem kind of silly. And like they all like trade back a lot of witty remarks. They all trade back a lot of sarcasm. I mean, it would have been fine if it was just one character. Because the thing is that they're like a very, very ragtag group. They're like a bunch of like problem children thrown together at the last minute. So if it were some of the some of the characters, then maybe I could have done it, but like it feels like all of the characters are a little bit too sarcastic for my liking. There's a lot of nicknames as well, and also one character who I guess is supposed to be Irish doesn't really sound naturally Irish, and I'm like, damn, who's this Weeaboo? Why do you use bloody in every sentence? But damn, you know, I'm probably gonna get some flames for this, but the real egregious character in this book for me was Cal. Okay, so hear me out on this. Cal is basically the Legolas of space, right? He's a space elf, and his people are going through a lot of like drama right now. They're going through like this civil war in which some guy is trying to like turn because they're all separated into different factions, and this guy is like turning like the warrior class against everybody else, and then everybody's like, we hate everyone from this warrior class, and Cal is a part of that warrior class. Cal and the people of like his alien race all talk like they're like chunibyo. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, real quick, chunibyo is this Japanese terminology called, what was it, second year middle school syndrome, in which young people are so immersed in their delusions of grandeur and usually believe themselves to have mystical powers or destined for some great purpose. Basically like 12-year-old Naruto cosplayers who are really into it. And Cal really talks like a chunibyo, like uses a lot of like fantasy JRPG sounding dialogue, very overdramatic. There's a lot of capitalized terminology, and I'm like, did that have to be capitalized? Like, we don't capitalize a lot of terminology, right? Like, a car isn't a car, capital C car, or like a wedding isn't a capital W wedding, right? But then like he talks about like the pull of the void, and the Star Slayer is coming towards us all now in his Wraith class starship. The leader of the Warbreed clan has come to kill us all. The enemy within boils in my blood, and I have to hold back my power lest I destroy everyone on this station. I am too powerful. You shouldn't get close to me. I'm dangerous. Edward Cullen, I think you lost someone. And he's also like, are the deaths of my brethren in vain? Their songs will never be sung again. Their souls are lost to the void. He's so overdramatic. And I'm like, okay, do you want nappies? I couldn't get into it. Cause whenever he spoke, I'm like, okay, you wanna go to math class now, maybe, dude? You wanna put on your Naruto headband and run in the track a little bit? I mean, considering Jay Kristoff wrote Stormjancer, I'm kind of a little bit not surprised. Yeah, so I just couldn't take anybody seriously in this book, and I'm like, damn, but this sounds like a nice premise, but damn, you lost me at Pixie Boy. Sorry, not sorry. And the last book that I've been reading, I mentioned already, was Shadow's Return, which is the 4th book in the Nightrunner series, but who knows when I'm gonna finish that, because like, it's a very small book, and it's a really dark period in this series, and I'm like, damn, maybe we can just hold off on it a little bit. But yeah, so those are the books that I read and am reading in January. I really want to, now that like things are a little bit quieter, I do want to get more videos out. At the same time, my last semester of college is starting, so like, who knows how everything's gonna turn out. But you know, I do want to keep this up. You know, recently I got diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm like, damn, no wonder I never really completed all those things in the past. So I'm like, okay, look, we're in quarantine. Who knows how life's gonna be right now? Might as well just do something. Just do it. Even if it's shitty, like, I want to do it. Like, that's just me with a lot of things right now. Like, I had a really shitty shower yesterday, but I had a shower. So, a win? That's a W for me. Yeah, so, well, I'm just gonna wrap it up right here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these books, what you're reading in January, and thanks again for tuning in. Hope to see you again soon. And that's a wrap from me. All right, well, bye.